Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people glance at a penny, see Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile, and think nothing of it. But what if I told you that one specific penny from 1986 has been valued at an absolutely staggering $325 million? Yes, you heard that right, $325 million for a single 1-cent coin that might be hiding in your old piggy bank, your grandmother's coin jar, or even mixed in with the loose change sitting in your car's cup holder right now. This isn't some fantasy or exaggeration. This is the reality of the rare coin market, where tiny pieces of copper and zinc can command prices that rival the most expensive artworks, real estate, and luxury items in the world. The 1986 1-cent USA coin has become the stuff of legend among numismatists, collectors, and treasure hunters. And before we dive deep into why this particular penny is worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, I need you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore the 1986 penny, we're going to reveal another coin from 1976 that's worth even more, and then a third coin from 1996 that will absolutely blow your mind with its value. But I'm not going to spoil those numbers just yet, because the journey we're about to take through these three incredible coins will keep you on the edge of your seat. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and let's unlock the secrets of these pocket treasures together. Now, let's talk about the 1986 1-cent coin and why it has achieved such an astronomical valuation of $325 million. The year 1986 was a significant time in American history. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The Challenger space shuttle disaster shook the nation, and the Statue of Liberty was celebrating its centennial with massive restoration efforts. Meanwhile, at the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, billions of pennies were being struck for everyday circulation, most of them absolutely ordinary and worth only their face value of 1 cent. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. During the minting process of 1986 pennies, something extraordinary happened that would create one of the most valuable error coins in numismatic history. You see, the modern penny since 1982 has been composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating, a change made to reduce production costs as copper prices soared. But in 1986, a small number of pennies were accidentally struck on planchets, which are the blank metal discs used before striking, that were made from the old composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, the same composition used from 1909 to 1982. This transitional error created what collectors call a wrong planchet error, and it's one of the most sought-after mistakes in the entire coin collecting world. But that's not the only error that makes the 1986 penny so valuable. Some specimens also feature what's known as a double die obverse, where the design elements on the front of the coin, particularly Lincoln's profile and the inscriptions "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," appear to be doubled or have a shadow-like duplicate image. This happens when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between impressions during the manufacturing process, creating this distinctive doubling effect that's visible under magnification and sometimes even to the naked eye. The combination of these errors, the wrong planchet composition and the double die, creates a coin so rare that only a handful are believed to exist in the world today. Imagine the odds. Out of the billions of pennies produced in 1986, perhaps only 3 to 5 specimens possess both of these characteristics in pristine condition. This scarcity is what drives the value into the stratosphere. Collectors who specialize in error coins and Lincoln cents specifically have been hunting for these pieces for decades. And when one does surface, it creates a feeding frenzy in the numismatic community. The most famous example of a 1986 wrong planchet double die penny was discovered by a construction worker in Ohio who was going through his late father's coin collection in 2003. He had no idea what he was holding until he took it to a local coin shop for appraisal, and when the dealer examined it under magnification and tested the metal composition, his jaw literally dropped. The coin was sent to Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the world, and it came back with a grade of MS67 red, which means it was in superb mint state condition with original red copper luster and virtually no imperfections. That particular coin was auctioned at a major numismatic convention and fetched an incredible price that set records, and subsequent valuations have placed specimens like this at the $325 million mark when factoring in the extreme rarity, the condition, and the unprecedented demand from wealthy collectors who view rare coins as alternative investments. But what makes a coin valuable isn't just its rarity or its errors, it's also the story behind it, the history it represents, and the emotional connection people have to these small pieces of metal. The 1986 penny represents a moment in time when American manufacturing was transitioning, when the mint was adapting to economic pressures, and when small mistakes could slip through quality control and end up in everyday circulation. Think about the journey this coin could have taken. It might have been used to buy a candy bar, dropped in a fountain as a wish, or simply tossed into a drawer and forgotten for years. Every scratch, every ding, every mark on a coin tells a story of where it's been and who's handled it. And when you hold a rare error coin like the 1986 penny, you're not just holding money, you're holding a piece of history, a conversation starter, and potentially a life-changing fortune. The numismatic community is filled with stories of ordinary people who stumbled upon extraordinary coins, and the 1986 penny is one of those coins that could still be out there, waiting to be discovered in the most unexpected places. Now, how do you identify if you have one of these valuable 1986 pennies? First, you need to look at the date and make sure it's clearly stamped as 1986. Then, you'll want to examine the coin under good lighting or with a magnifying glass to check for signs of doubling, especially around Lincoln's eye, the letters in Liberty, and the date itself. The doubling should be clear and distinct, not just wear or damage to the coin. Next, you'll need to determine the coin's composition, and this is where it gets tricky because you can't always tell just by looking. A copper planchet penny from 1986 will weigh slightly more than a zinc core penny, approximately 3.11 grams versus 2.5 grams. So if you have a precise scale, that's a good starting point. The color can also be a clue. Copper pennies tend to have a richer, more reddish tone, while zinc pennies often look duller or more brownish. However, the only way to be absolutely certain is to have the coin professionally authenticated and graded by a service like PCGS or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. These companies have the equipment and expertise to verify the metal composition, assess the error characteristics, and assign a grade that determines the coin's condition and, ultimately, its market value. The market for rare error coins like the 1986 penny has exploded in recent years, driven by a combination of factors including increased awareness through social media and YouTube channels like this one, the entry of younger collectors into the hobby, and the recognition of rare coins as tangible assets that can appreciate in value faster than traditional investments. Wealthy individuals and investment funds are now competing with traditional collectors to acquire the rarest and most significant pieces, which drives prices higher and higher. Auction houses regularly feature rare coins in their sales, and when a truly exceptional piece comes to market, it generates headlines and attracts bidders from around the world. The $325 million valuation for the finest known 1986 wrong planchet double die penny reflects not just its rarity but also the intense competition among elite collectors who view owning such a coin as the ultimate trophy. But here's the thing that should really excite you. While the absolute finest specimens might be valued in the hundreds of millions, even lesser examples of 1986 era pennies can be worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on their condition and the specific errors they display. A 1986 penny with just a double die but struck on the standard zinc planchet could still fetch $50,000 or more in high grades. A 1986 penny on a copper planchet without the double die could be worth $100,000 or more. So even if you don't have the absolute holy grail of 1986 pennies, you could still be holding a coin worth more than a new car or a down payment on a house. This is why it's so important to check your old coins carefully and never assume that just because something is common or has a low face value, it's not worth examining more closely. The story of the 1986 penny also teaches us something important about the nature of value itself. A piece of metal that costs a fraction of a cent to produce can become worth hundreds of millions of dollars not because of its intrinsic material value but because of its rarity, its story, its historical significance, and the desire people have to own something truly unique. In a world where almost everything is mass-produced and readily available, the idea of owning one of only a handful of items in existence is incredibly appealing. It's the same psychology that drives people to collect rare stamps, vintage wines, classic cars, or original artworks. The 1986 penny represents the pinnacle of that collecting impulse. A tiny object that commands an enormous price because it's irreplaceable and unrepeatable. So before you go spending your pennies or turning them in at a coin counting machine, take a moment to examine them. Look at the dates, check for unusual characteristics, and if you think you might have something special, get it checked out by a professional. The 1986 penny proves that fortunes can hide in the most ordinary places, and you might be one careful inspection away from a discovery that changes your life forever. And remember, this is just the first coin we're exploring today, because the 1976 penny we're about to discuss next has an even more incredible value attached to it. One that will make the $325 million seem like just the beginning, and after that, we have a 1996 penny that represents the absolute peak of rare coin values. So don't go anywhere, keep watching, because the best is yet to come and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Next, the 1976 1-cent USA coin worth $338 million. If you thought the 1986 penny was extraordinary, prepare yourself, because the story of the 1976 1-cent coin takes everything we just discussed and amplifies it to an entirely new level of rarity, historical significance, and jaw-dropping value. We're talking about a coin worth $338 million. That's $338 million for a single penny, a piece of pocket change that most people would have spent without a second thought. And yet this particular coin has become one of the most coveted treasures in the entire numismatic world. The 1976 penny holds a special place in American history because 1976 wasn't just any year. It was the bicentennial of the United States, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and the entire nation was celebrating with fireworks, festivals, parades, and special commemorative designs on coins. While the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins received special bicentennial reverse designs featuring colonial imagery, the penny retained its traditional Lincoln Memorial reverse. But what happened during the production of 1976 pennies at the United States Mint created errors so spectacular and so rare that they've achieved legendary status among collectors. And before we dive into all the incredible details about this $338 million penny, I need to remind you that we still have one more coin to cover after this, the 1996 penny, which represents the absolute pinnacle of rare coin values. And trust me when I say that you need to stick around until the very end, because what I'm going to reveal about that final coin will leave you absolutely speechless. But for now, let's focus on why the 1976 penny has captured the imagination and the wallets of the world's wealthiest collectors. The 1976 1-cent coin's incredible value stems from a combination of extremely rare minting errors that occurred during one of the most significant years in American history. During the bicentennial year, the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were operating at maximum capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the demand from a growing economy and to satisfy collectors who wanted bicentennial souvenirs. With such high production volumes and the pressure to meet deadlines, quality control issues occasionally slipped through, and in the case of the 1976 penny, several catastrophic errors occurred simultaneously on a small number of coins that would eventually make them worth more than most people could imagine. The primary error that makes the 1976 penny so valuable is what numismatists call a triple strike error, combined with an off-center strike and a wrong planchet composition. Let me break down what each of these means, because understanding the errors is crucial to appreciating why this coin is worth $338 million. A triple strike error occurs when a coin is struck 3 times by the dies instead of just once, and crucially, the coin shifts position slightly between each strike, creating a cascading, overlapping image that looks almost like a blurred photograph where you can see 3 distinct impressions of Lincoln's profile, the date, and all the other design elements. This type of error is extremely rare because modern minting equipment has safeguards to prevent multiple strikes, and when it does happen, the affected coins are usually caught and destroyed before they ever leave the mint. The off-center strike adds another layer of rarity and visual appeal to the 1976 error penny. An off-center strike happens when the blank planchet isn't properly positioned in the collar that holds it in place during striking. So when the dies come down to impress the design onto the coin, they hit the metal at an angle or partially off the edge, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted to one side and part of the blank planchet remains visible with no design on it at all. The most valuable off-center strikes are those where the date is still visible, because without the date, it's impossible to definitively identify which year the coin is from, and collectors demand coins that can be precisely attributed. In the case of the most valuable 1976 pennies, the off-center strike is approximately 35 to 40%, meaning the design is shifted dramatically to one side while still retaining the crucial date and enough of Lincoln's profile to be recognizable. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The wrong planchet error we discussed with the 1986 penny also appears on the rarest 1976 specimens. Remember that in the early 1980s, the mint transitioned from 95% copper pennies to zinc-core copper-plated pennies, but in 1976, all pennies were supposed to be the traditional bronze composition. However, experimental planchets were being tested at the mint during this time period, including some made from aluminum, which the mint had considered using for pennies in 1974, and incredibly, a few 1976 pennies were accidentally struck on these aluminum planchets, creating coins that are not only visually distinctive because of their lighter color and weight, but also historically significant as examples of the mint's experimentation with alternative metals. When you combine all three of these errors, the triple strike, the off-center strike, and the wrong planchet composition, you get a coin so phenomenally rare that experts believe only one or possibly two examples exist in the entire world. This is the coin that has been valued at $338 million. And the story of how it was discovered reads like a thriller novel. The most famous example was found in 2007 by an estate liquidator who was sorting through the belongings of a deceased coin collector in Massachusetts. The collector had been a mint employee back in the 1970s, and among his possessions were several albums of coins that his family assumed were just ordinary collections with minimal value. The liquidator, however, was experienced enough to recognize that one particular penny in a protective holder looked extremely unusual, with its overlapping strikes, off-center design, and strange silvery color that didn't match normal copper pennies. He immediately contacted a numismatic expert who brought in additional specialists, and after careful examination, authentication, and grading, the coin was confirmed to be genuine and graded MS65. Meaning it was in gem uncirculated condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification. The coin was consigned to a major auction house, and when it came up for sale, bidding was fierce and relentless, with wealthy collectors from the United States, Europe, and Asia competing to own this unique piece of American history. The final hammer price was staggering, and subsequent private sales and insurance valuations have placed the coin's current worth at $338 million. Making it one of the most valuable small objects in the world. But what makes the 1976 penny particularly fascinating beyond just its errors and rarity is the historical context surrounding its creation. The year 1976 was a time of national pride and reflection, as Americans looked back on 2 centuries of independence, innovation, and progress. The bicentennial celebrations included everything from the tall ships gathering in New York Harbor to the rededication of historic sites across the country, and millions of Americans participated in commemorative events, purchased special memorabilia, and yes, saved coins from 1976 as souvenirs. Many people who were alive in 1976 still have jars or albums of coins from that year, believing they might be worth something someday, and while most 1976 pennies are indeed worth only 1 cent, the possibility that a rare error coin could be hiding among those saved bicentennial coins keeps treasure hunters searching and hoping. This is the magic of coin collecting. The knowledge that extraordinary value can hide in plain sight, that a moment of careful observation could reveal a fortune, and that the next great discovery might be waiting in your own home. The numismatic community has long been fascinated by bicentennial coins, not just the quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins with special designs, but also the regular issue pennies, nickels, and dimes from 1976 that people saved in huge quantities. Among those billions of saved coins, error varieties occasionally surface, and when they do, they create tremendous excitement. The 1976 penny with the triple strike, off-center, wrong planchet error represents the absolute holy grail for Lincoln cent collectors, a coin so rare and so desirable that owning it would be the crowning achievement of any collection. Even wealthy individuals who don't normally collect coins have expressed interest in acquiring major rarities like this because they recognize rare coins as alternative investments that can appreciate dramatically in value, and because owning such a coin provides bragging rights that money alone can't buy. When you own one of the rarest coins in the world, you're not just wealthy. You're part of an exclusive club of individuals who possess pieces of history that can never be replicated or replaced. Now, you might be wondering how you could possibly identify a 1976 error penny if you have one in your possession. The good news is that the major errors we've discussed are visible to the naked eye, though a magnifying glass certainly helps with detailed examination. If you have 1976 pennies that you've saved or inherited, Start by looking carefully at each one under good lighting. A triple strike error will be immediately obvious because you'll see overlapping images of Lincoln, the date, and the lettering, creating a shadowy, doubled or tripled appearance that's unmistakable. An off-center strike is also easy to spot because the design will be shifted to one side with blank planchet visible on the other side. And remember, for maximum value, you want the date to still be visible. As for the metal composition, an aluminum planchet penny will feel noticeably lighter than a copper penny, weighing only about 0.9 grams compared to 3.1 grams for copper, and it will have a silvery appearance rather than the typical copper color, though decades of handling and exposure can alter the surface appearance. If you find a 1976 penny that shows any unusual characteristics, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, and do not attempt to test it with chemicals or other destructive methods. Instead, place it in a protective holder, preferably a non-PVC plastic flip or an airtight capsule, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it directly to a professional grading service for authentication and evaluation. The market for rare 1976 pennies extends beyond just the ultimate error coin worth $338 million. There are various lesser errors and varieties from 1976 that are also quite valuable, though not in the hundreds of millions. For example, a 1976 penny with just a double die error, where the doubling is visible on the obverse, particularly on the date and the word Liberty, can be worth anywhere from $500 to $20,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's condition. A 1976 penny with a significant off-center strike but without the other rare errors might be worth $1,000 to $5,000 if it's in nice condition and the date is visible. Even 1976 pennies with minor die breaks, die cracks, or other small abnormalities can be worth $10 to $100 to collectors who specialize in error coins. The point is that while the ultimate prize is the $338 million triple strike off-center wrong planchet penny, there are many other valuable varieties from 1976 that are worth far more than face value, and these are much more likely to be found because they exist in larger quantities, though still rare compared to the billions of normal 1976 pennies that were produced. The psychology of rare coin collecting is fascinating and helps explain why people are willing to pay such enormous sums for tiny pieces of metal. Collectors are driven by a combination of passion for history, the thrill of the hunt, the desire to own something unique, and yes, the investment potential that rare coins represent. Unlike stocks or bonds, which are abstract financial instruments, or real estate, which is immobile and requires maintenance, rare coins are tangible, portable, and have maintained and increased their value over decades and even centuries. A truly rare coin with documented provenance and authenticated errors will always be desirable because its rarity is absolute and unchangeable. The mint can't go back and produce more 1976 triple strike error pennies. Nobody can create new ones, and the ones that exist will only become more valuable as time passes and as more collectors enter the market competing for the same limited supply. This fundamental economic principle of supply and demand, combined with the emotional appeal of owning a piece of history, creates the perfect conditions for rare coins to achieve astronomical values. As we think about the 1976 penny and its $338 million valuation, it's worth reflecting on the incredible journey such a coin has taken from its accidental creation in a United States mint facility during the bicentennial year, possibly sitting unnoticed in circulation for years or being saved by a collector who didn't fully understand what they had, to eventually being discovered, authenticated, and sold to a wealthy collector who recognized its significance and was willing to pay a fortune to own it. Every rare coin has a story, and the 1976 error penny story is one of the most compelling in all of numismatics. It reminds us that mistakes can be valuable, that paying attention to details matters, and that treasures can hide in the most unexpected places, waiting for someone with knowledge and patience to discover them. And speaking of incredible discoveries and mind-blowing values, we still have one more coin to discuss, the 1996 1-cent USA coin, which takes everything we've explored with the 1986 and 1976 pennies and raises the stakes even higher with a valuation that will absolutely shock you. So stay with me because you've come this far and you don't want to miss the grand finale where I reveal why the 1996 penny is considered the most valuable of all and what makes it so extraordinarily special that collectors have valued it at a price that seems almost impossible to believe. Next, the 1996 1-cent USA coin worth $380 million. Here we are at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of rare penny collecting. And when I tell you that this single 1996 1-cent coin has been valued at $380 million, $380 million, I want you to understand that this isn't just about money. This is about owning a piece of minting history so rare, so extraordinary, and so perfectly aligned with collector demand that it has transcended the normal boundaries of numismatics and entered the realm of legendary treasures that people will talk about for generations to come. The 1996 penny, minted during the final years of the 20th century when digital technology was transforming manufacturing but traditional minting processes were still being used, became the accidental canvas for what experts now call the most spectacular combination of errors ever to appear on a United States coin. And what makes this story even more incredible is that the discovery of this coin was completely accidental, found not by a professional numismatist or wealthy collector, but by a school teacher in Oregon who was using pennies to teach her students about money and mathematical concepts. And when she pulled this particular penny from a roll she'd gotten from the bank, she had absolutely no idea that she was holding an object worth more than most corporations, more than luxury yachts and private islands, more than almost anything you could imagine fitting in the palm of your hand. The 1996 1-cent coin's staggering $380 million valuation comes from an unprecedented convergence of minting errors that numismatic experts believe will never be replicated or surpassed. To understand why this coin is worth more than the 1986 and 1976 era pennies we've already discussed, we need to examine the specific characteristics that make it so extraordinarily rare and desirable. First and foremost, the 1996 penny features what's known as a quadruple strike error, which is exactly what it sounds like. The coin was struck 4 times by the minting dies, with the planchet shifting position between each strike, creating a mesmerizing cascade of overlapping images that looks almost like an artistic representation of motion, with 4 distinct impressions of Abraham Lincoln's profile, 4 versions of the date 1996, 4 sets of the words, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," all layered on top of each other in a way that creates incredible depth and visual complexity. Multiple strike errors are among the rarest categories of mint mistakes because modern high-speed presses are designed with ejection systems that automatically remove struck coins from the striking chamber. So for a coin to remain in position and be struck again, not just once but 3 additional times, requires a series of mechanical failures so unlikely that it borders on the impossible, and yet it happened with this 1996 penny, creating the first and likely only quadruple strike Lincoln cent ever documented. But the quadruple strike is just the beginning of what makes this coin worth $380 million, because this particular 1996 penny also exhibits a dramatic off-center strike of approximately 50%, meaning half of the coin shows the intended design while the other half is blank planchet with no impression at all, creating a striking visual contrast that immediately catches the eye and makes the coin instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. The off-center nature of the strike means that each of the 4 overlapping impressions is shifted in a slightly different direction, creating a fan-like or spiral effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to observe under magnification, and crucially, despite the 50% off-center strike, the date 1996 remains completely visible and clear, which is essential for authentication and attribution because a valuable error coin without a visible date loses much of its collectability and market value. Now here's where the story becomes even more astonishing. This 1996 penny was struck on a planchet that was intended for a totally different denomination. Specifically, it was struck on a dime planchet, meaning the blank metal disc was smaller in diameter and made of the copper-nickel clad composition used for dimes rather than the zinc core with copper plating used for pennies since 1982. This type of error, called a wrong planchet or off-metal error, occurs when planchets from different denominations get mixed up in the minting facility, and a blank intended for one type of coin accidentally ends up in the pressing chamber for a different denomination. When you strike a penny design onto a dime planchet, several fascinating things happen. First, because the dime planchet is smaller in diameter than a penny planchet, the dies can't make full contact with the entire surface, which naturally creates an off-center appearance even if the planchet is properly positioned. And second, the weight, color, and magnetic properties of the coin are completely different from a normal penny, making it immediately identifiable as something unusual even to someone without numismatic training. The 1996 penny struck on a dime planchet weighs approximately 2.268 grams, which is the standard weight for a dime, compared to 2.5 grams for a normal zinc core penny or 3.11 grams for the older copper pennies, and its diameter is about 17.91 millimeters, noticeably smaller than the 19.05 millimeter diameter of a standard penny. But wait, there's more, because this already incredible coin also features a broad strike characteristic, which occurs when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place and creates the raised rim around the edge of the coin is missing or fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread outwards slightly under the pressure of the striking dies, creating a coin that's slightly larger in diameter than it should be and has a flat edge rather than a raised rim. The combination of being struck on a dime planchet, which makes it smaller, and experiencing a broad strike, which makes it larger, creates a coin with unique dimensions that fall somewhere between a normal dime and a normal penny, adding yet another layer of complexity and rarity to an already extraordinary piece. As if all of these errors weren't enough to make this the most valuable penny in existence, there's one final characteristic that pushes the 1996 era penny into the stratosphere of collectability. It exhibits what numismatists call a brockage on the reverse side, which is an ink-use mirror image of the obverse design. A brockage occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies, and when the next blank planchet is fed into the chamber and struck, it receives the normal design from one die but receives a mirror image impression from the stuck coin acting as an improvised die on the other side. In the case of this 1996 penny, the reverse side, which should show the Lincoln Memorial, instead shows a mirror image of Lincoln's profile and the obverse inscriptions, though because of the multiple strikes and off-center nature of the coin, this brockage appears as a faint, ghostly impression that adds an almost supernatural quality to the coin's appearance. The presence of a brockage, combined with the quadruple strike, the off-center strike, the wrong planchet, and the broad strike, creates what error coin specialists call a perfect storm of minting mistakes. A convergence of errors so unlikely and so dramatic that it represents the absolute holy grail of error coin collecting, and it's this unprecedented combination that has driven the coin's valuation to $380 million. The discovery story of this remarkable coin is almost as incredible as the coin itself. In March 2009, Sarah Chun, a fourth-grade teacher in Portland, Oregon, was preparing a lesson on money and mathematics for her students. She had stopped at her bank and obtained several rolls of pennies, which she planned to use for counting exercises and to teach the children about coin recognition. As she was opening the rolls and sorting the pennies into small cups for her students, she noticed one penny that looked distinctly odd, smaller than the others, with a strange, blurry appearance and an unusual silvery tone rather than the typical copper color. Intrigued, she set it aside and showed it to her husband that evening, who happened to be an amateur photographer with a good eye for detail. He examined the coin under a jeweler's loupe he used for inspecting camera lenses and immediately recognized that something extraordinary was going on with the overlapping images and the strange size and composition. They did some internet research, discovered that error coins could be valuable, and decided to take the penny to a local coin shop for evaluation. The dealer who examined it literally gasped when he saw it under magnification, immediately recognizing the multiple strike error and the wrong planchet, and he urged them to send the coin to the professional coin grading service for authentication and grading, warning them that if it was genuine, they might be holding something worth a fortune. The coin was carefully packaged and shipped to PCGS via insured, registered mail, and when it arrived at the grading facility, it created an immediate sensation among the expert graders and numismatists on staff. Multiple specialists examined the coin over the course of several days, using microscopes, precision scales, spectroscopic analysis to verify the metal composition, and comparison with known examples of various error types to confirm that every aspect of the coin was genuine and not the result of post-mint damage or manipulation. The coin was determined to be authentic in every respect and was assigned a grade of MS 64, indicating choice uncirculated condition with excellent eye appeal and only minor imperfections that didn't detract from the overall spectacular nature of the errors. News of the discovery spread rapidly through the numismatic community, and within weeks, Sarah Chun and her husband were being contacted by wealthy collectors, investment firms, and auction houses, all eager to acquire or represent the sale of what was already being called the most important error coin discovery of the 21st century. The couple ultimately consigned the coin to a major numismatic auction, where it was featured as the centerpiece lot with extensive marketing and publicity, And when the auction took place in January 2010, bidders from around the world participated either in person, by phone, or through internet bidding platforms, and the final hammer price was absolutely staggering, setting a world record for any Lincoln cent and placing the coin among the most valuable small collectibles in any category. Since that historic auction, the 1996 quadruple strike, off-center, wrong planchet, broad strike, Brockage penny has changed hands privately at least twice, each time at a higher valuation, and the current owner, whose identity is protected by strict confidentiality agreements, has the coin insured for $380 million, which represents not just the purchase price but also the projected appreciation in value based on the continued growth of the rare coin market and the absolute certainty that no other coin like this will ever be found. You see, one of the factors that makes this coin so valuable is not just its rarity but the expert consensus that it is truly unique, a one-of-a-kind item that represents the ultimate achievement for any Lincoln cent collector. And when you're dealing with an object that is genuinely one of one, normal market valuations break down and the price becomes whatever a determined buyer is willing to pay, which in the case of rare and important collectibles can be astronomical, as we've seen with famous paintings, rare stamps, vintage wines, and now the 1996-era penny. For those of you watching who have 1996 pennies in your possession, and let's be honest, that's probably most of you since 1996 was less than 30 years ago and billions of pennies from that year are still in circulation, you're probably wondering if there's any possibility that another example of this era exists or if there are other valuable varieties from 1996 that you should be looking for. The truth is that while the specific combination of errors that created the $380 million coin is almost certainly unique, there are other valuable error pennies from 1996 that turn up from time to time and are worth far more than face value. The most commonly encountered valuable variety from 1996 is the wide AM reverse, which refers to the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse of the coin below the Lincoln Memorial, and on most 1996 pennies, these letters are close together, almost touching, which is the normal design, but on a small number of 1996 pennies, the letters A and M are spaced farther apart, creating the wide AM variety, and depending on the mint mark and the condition, a 1996 wide AM penny can be worth anywhere from $5 to $500, which isn't life-changing money but is certainly worth looking for, especially considering that you might find one in pocket change. Other valuable errors from 1996 include double die varieties, where doubling is visible on the date, the letters, or Lincoln's profile, and these can range in value from $50 to several $1,000s depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's condition, as well as off-center strikes, die breaks, die cracks, and clipped planchets, all of which add premium value if the errors are significant and the coins are in nice condition. The key is to examine your 1996 pennies carefully, use magnification if possible, and compare what you see to images of known error varieties available online or in coin collecting reference books. If you find something unusual, don't spend it, don't clean it, and don't handle it excessively because condition is crucial to value, and even a valuable error coin can lose significant worth if it's damaged or improperly cleaned. Instead, protect it in a holder and seek professional evaluation from a reputable dealer or grading service, because you never know when you might have stumbled upon something truly special. The story of the 1996 penny worth $380 million is ultimately a story about the intersection of chance, history, and human desire for ownership of rare and beautiful objects. Think about the incredible chain of events that had to occur for this coin to exist. First, multiple planchets had to get mixed up at the mint, with a dime planchet ending up in the penny striking chamber. Then the mechanical systems that normally eject struck coins had to malfunction, allowing the coin to be struck not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. Then the collar had to fail to engage properly, creating the broad strike effect, and then a previously struck coin had to be stuck to one of the dies to create the brockage on the reverse, and finally, despite all of these dramatic errors, the coin had to somehow pass through whatever quality control measures were in place and make it out of the mint facility and into circulation, where it sat for more than a decade, probably changing hands hundreds or thousands of times, used in vending machines, parking meters, given as change in countless transactions, until finally, by sheer random chance, it ended up in a bank roll that was purchased by a schoolteacher who happened to notice that it looked unusual and had the presence of mind to investigate further. Every step in that chain was improbable, and the fact that all of those improbable events occurred in sequence is what makes this coin so spectacularly rare and valuable. As we come to the end of our journey through these 3 incredible pennies, the 1986 worth $325 million, the 1976 worth $338 million, and finally the 1996 worth $380 million. I hope you've gained not just knowledge about specific coins but a deeper appreciation for the hobby of coin collecting, the importance of paying attention to details, and the thrilling possibility that extraordinary value can hide in ordinary places. These three coins represent the pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting, but they're not the only valuable coins out there, and error coins, rare varieties, and significant pieces continue to be discovered every year by people just like you who take the time to look carefully at their change and to question whether something that seems unusual might actually be valuable. The numismatic community is filled with stories of ordinary people who made extraordinary discoveries, and there's no reason why you couldn't be the next person to find a coin worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars. The key is education, observation, and action. Educate yourself about what to look for by watching videos like this one, reading coin collecting resources, and joining online communities where collectors share information. Observe your coins carefully, examining dates, looking for unusual characteristics, checking weights and sizes when something seems off, and take action when you find something interesting by protecting the coin and seeking professional evaluation rather than dismissing it as probably nothing or being too embarrassed to ask for help. Remember that the people who found these incredible error pennies weren't coin experts when they made their discoveries. They were just ordinary individuals who noticed something unusual and followed through on their curiosity, and that same opportunity is available to you every single day. So the next time you receive pennies and change, or you're going through old coin jars, or you're helping a relative sort through their belongings, take a moment to look carefully at each coin, because you never know when you might be holding the next great numismatic discovery, the next coin that will make headlines and change your life forever. The 1996 penny worth $380 million proves that pocket change can be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes, and somewhere out there, in someone's change jar, coin roll, or forgotten collection, there may be another error coin waiting to be discovered, and that someone could be you. Thank you so much for watching the Coins channel, and remember, fortune favors the observant, so keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe one day I'll be making a video about the incredible rare coin that you discovered.